Sometimes the truth hurts, and when it comes to human relationships, the reality is that we often cling to people who, deep down, have already let us go. We convince ourselves that if we persist a little more, if we prove our worth, if we do things right, that person will stay. But here's the truth, a truth that Carl Jung understood deeply. When someone doesn't love you, the signs are clear, but our minds fight against them. Jung believed that the unconscious sends us signals all the time. It whispers uncomfortable truths through intuitions, emotions, and physical sensations. That feeling of discomfort when someone responds coldly, that emptiness when you sense the connection fading, all of that is your unconscious speaking to you. But instead of listening, we often choose to ignore it. Why? Because facing the truth means confronting our deepest fear, the fear of rejection, of not being enough, of being abandoned. In our psyche, rejection isn't just an isolated event. It's a wound that touches the deepest layers of our identity. When someone stops loving us, we don't just feel the absence of their love. We also face a mirror that forces us to ask, why wasn't I enough? But here's where Jung offers a completely different perspective. It's not about being enough for someone else, but about being authentic with ourselves. When someone doesn't love you, you'll notice it, not because they tell you directly, but because their energy changes. Jung spoke about projection, the mechanism through which we project onto others what we refuse to see in ourselves. When we cling to someone who no longer feels the same, we're projecting our own need for love and validation onto them. We want them to give us what we're unwilling to give ourselves: acceptance, security, acknowledgement. Here's the problem. The more you insist on holding onto a relationship with someone who isn't aligned with you, the further you drift from your own truth. Jung said the unconscious will always seek to manifest the truth, even if it means generating pain. That's why when someone no longer loves you, you'll start noticing signs you previously overlooked. Short replies, less enthusiasm, less interest in sharing their world with you. It's not that they're hiding it, it's that you don't want to see it. The conscious mind looks for rational explanations. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're going through a hard time. If I try harder, everything will go back to how it was. But the unconscious knows the truth. It knows that relationships based on one-sidedness are destined for suffering. It knows that clinging to someone who no longer chooses you is an act of self-deception. Before moving forward, I'll mention that my book is now available. It's filled with advice and techniques to help you overcome emotional blocks and love yourself more. Find the link in the description and pinned comment. Let's continue. Jung also spoke about the importance of individuation, the journey of becoming the most complete and authentic version of yourself. One of the hardest stages of this process is learning to let go. Letting go not just of people, but of ideas, expectations, and narratives that no longer serve you. When someone stops loving you, the pain doesn't just come from their absence. It comes from the internal battle between what you desire and what is real. But here's the most crucial part. Letting go isn't losing, it's gaining. It's gaining clarity, energy, and space for what's truly aligned with you. Jung taught that the universe and the unconscious always work together. When something leaves, it's because something better can arrive. But for that to happen, you must be willing to accept the truth, even if it hurts. Most people resist this truth because it means accepting uncertainty. It means acknowledging that we have no control over how others feel or act. But there is one thing you can control: your ability to choose what to do with the reality in front of you. When you finally, accept it, something curious happens. At first, the emptiness is overwhelming. It feels like part of you has been torn away. But then, in the silence of that absence, you begin to notice something you'd ignored before: your own voice. The voice that had been drowned out by the need to fit into someone else's life, by the fear of loneliness, by the hope that things could be different. Carl Jung understood that human suffering doesn't just come from pain itself, but from resistance to transformation. We cling to the idea that love must last forever, that people should stay if they truly care, that if we try hard enough, everything will work out. But the truth is different. Love is a reflection of consciousness. When a connection no longer aligns with who you are, its energy changes. Not because someone did something wrong, but because everything in life is in constant motion. You won't notice the disinterest immediately, because the mind creates illusions to protect itself from pain. We justify absences, silences, coldness. We tell ourselves it's a phase, that stress is to blame, that if we give a little more, maybe everything will return to how it was. But the reality is, when someone stops loving you, their world keeps spinning without you. You'll notice it in how they no longer include you in their life. It's not that they hate you or want to hurt you, it's that their energy has moved in another direction. This isn't a punishment, it's a call to look inward and ask, why am I insisting on something that doesn't flow? Why am I so afraid to let go? Jung spoke about projection because he understood that what we seek in others is often what we deny ourselves. Maybe you're seeking love from someone who can't give it because you haven't learned to love yourself. Maybe you're waiting for validation from someone who's already moved on because you haven't learned to recognize your own worth. Life has a mysterious way of teaching us what we need to learn. If you keep chasing someone who no longer chooses you, the lesson will become more painful. Love isn't a battle, it's an alignment. When something stops being aligned, insisting only prolongs the suffering. You'll notice it when their words lose warmth, when their replies feel mechanical, when there's no emotion in their eyes when they see you. Not because they're cruel, but because their feelings have changed. Here's the key question. What will you do with that truth? Can you deny it? Keep insisting, hoping things will change? Or can you do what Jung suggested? Integrate the lesson, let the pain do its work, and finally let go. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't love or that it didn't hurt. It means you love yourself enough not to beg for crumbs. It means choosing your peace over a futile struggle. It means recognizing that life goes on, and what's meant for you will never need to be forced. The energy of people truly destined to be in your life flows to you naturally. There's no need to beg, convince, or prove your worth. When you decide to let go, something inside you shifts. At first, it hurts. But in that absence, in that space that felt unbearable, you begin to notice something new. Freedom. You start remembering who you are outside of that relationship. What excites you? What makes you vibrate? You reclaim the parts of yourself you'd set aside trying to hold on to something that no longer had life. Jung said the unconscious always seeks balance. When something breaks, when someone walks away, it's because there's a new version of you waiting to be discovered. But you'll only see it if you stop looking backward. It's not easy. Every part of you will want to cling, to send that last message, make that last call, search for one last sign of hope. But each time you do, you'll prolong your own suffering. Here's the hardest truth to accept. If someone truly wants you in their life, you'll feel it, in their words, actions, and energy. You won't need to decipher ambiguous messages or justify their indifference. Real connection is clear. It doesn't leave you in constant anxiety or make you feel like you have to fight to be seen. The greatest act of love you can give yourself is to recognize when someone has stopped choosing you and have the courage to do the same. As long as you hold on to what's already gone, you'll block the arrival of what's truly meant for you. When someone doesn't love you, you'll notice it. And when you finally decide to accept it, you'll notice something else. Your life, peace, and happiness never depended on someone else. They were always within you, waiting to be chosen. The mind plays cruel tricks when facing loss. It wants reasons, explanations, justifications. It wants to believe that if you change something, try harder, or say the right words, everything will return to how it was. But here's the truth Jung also understood. What's gone is gone. What isn't aligned with you can't stay, and what's meant for you will never need to be forced. It's hard to accept because it means letting go of the illusion of control. We're taught that if we work hard enough, results will match our expectations. But in human relationships, this doesn't work. You can't control someone else's feelings. You can't convince someone to love you if their heart no longer resonates with yours. You can try, sacrifice, reshape yourself, tolerate absences and silences. But all that will do is make you forget who you are. Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the shadow, acknowledging the parts of ourselves we avoid seeing. Often, the reason we cling to someone who doesn't love us is because we fear what we'll see in the mirror of their rejection. We fear that their leaving means we're unworthy of love, that we're not enough. But here's the greatest deception. Their love never defined your worth. Their presence or absence never determined what you deserve. Only you can decide that. When someone doesn't love you, you'll notice it in how they no longer prioritize you, in how their replies grow distant, cold, and short. Conversations that once flowed now feel forced, as if you're talking to a stranger. Not because they want to hurt you, but because the energy between you has changed. And though it hurts, though every part of you wants to cling, the bravest act is to accept the truth. Because truth liberates. It's painful, yes, but it's also the first step toward healing. Jung said, "What you resist persists." The more you resist accepting that someone no longer wants to be in your life, the more pain you'll cause yourself, not because they're cruel, but because the universe, life, your own unconscious, are pushing you to let go. At first, the mind will rebel. It'll tell you, maybe they just need space. Maybe if you do this or that, they'll change their mind. But here's the key. Real love doesn't need to be begged for. When someone wants to be in your life, they show it. And when they don't, they show that, too. Sometimes, we just don't want to see the signs because it would mean facing the void of their absence. But that void isn't the end. It's a sacred space, a rebirth. It's the moment you can reconnect with yourself. Remember who you were before that relationship, before that person. Because love isn't about losing yourself in someone else. It's about sharing your light without letting it fade. When someone doesn't love you, you'll notice it. And when you finally decide to let go, you'll also notice something else. Life goes on. Pain isn't permanent. New doors are waiting to open for you, but you'll only see them if you stop looking back. Then comes that inevitable moment, the point where you can no longer deceive yourself, where every sign, absence, and empty word outweighs the excuses you'd told yourself. There are no more doubts, no more maybes, only the naked truth. The connection is broken. The bond has weakened, the feelings have changed, and the most painful part isn't that, the other person no longer loves you. It's the internal struggle between accepting that reality or clinging to what no longer exists. Here, Jung offers a different path, one beyond despair and resistance. He taught that every emotional crisis is an opportunity for transformation. Not because we should romanticize pain, but because within that pain lies a seed of growth. A lesson that can only emerge when we're willing to look inward instead of seeking answers outside. We cling because we believe. Letting go means losing something irreplaceable. But have you ever asked, what are you really losing? Sometimes, it's not the other person you miss. It's the version of yourself that existed within that relationship. You miss the illusion, the dream of what could have been. But real love isn't an illusion. It's not something you have to convince someone to give you. It's given freely, without conditions, games, or constant doubts. When someone no longer loves you, it's not a sign to try harder. It's a sign that your paths have diverged. Yes, it hurts. It hurts to let go of a story you built in your mind. It hurts to accept that what you wanted didn't materialize. But pain isn't the enemy. The real enemy is resistance to what's already inevitable. Jung spoke of the unconscious as a force always seeking balance. When a relationship breaks, it's not a punishment or coincidence. It's a manifestation of that balance the universe is trying to restore in your life. Sometimes, we cling to what hurts not because we need it, but because we fear the void their absence leaves. But the void isn't the end. It's where healing begins. When someone doesn't love you, you'll notice it in the small details. The lack of enthusiasm, the growing emotional distance. Not because they want to hurt you, but because their energy has simply shifted. And here's the hardest lesson to learn. You can't make someone feel what's no longer there. But what you can do is choose how to respond to that truth. You can deny it, fight it, prolong your suffering, or accept it and take the most important step. Return to yourself. Because when you let go of what doesn't belong to you, you start reclaiming everything you'd left behind trying to hold on to a relationship that wasn't meant for you. It's not easy. Nothing involving growth is. But when you finally decide to let go, something inside you changes. You no longer live waiting for replies that'll never come. You no longer waste energy trying to resurrect what's already dead. Instead, you begin to notice something new. Space. A space where you can rebuild, reconnect, and start attracting what's truly aligned with you. Over time, you realize something that once seemed impossible. You lost nothing. On the contrary, you gained the chance to start anew, to create a life where love isn't a battle, but a natural flowing connection. A life where you no longer have to convince anyone to stay, because the people truly destined to walk with you will never need persuasion. When you finally accept the truth, when you stop searching for signs that aren't there, when you release the need for things to return to how they were, something inside you shifts. Not immediately, not without pain, but with time, you feel relief, a quiet rest. Because what's most exhausting isn't rejection itself, but the internal struggle to hold on to what's already collapsed. Jung spoke of individuation as the path to your true self. Part of that journey involves recognizing which relationships nurture your growth and which drain your energy. Sometimes, we stay in places with no reciprocity because we confuse love with attachment. We think letting go means losing something valuable, but what we really lose is ourselves when we stay where we're not welcome. You'll notice it in how conversations grow shorter, replies less enthusiastic, silences longer. It's not because the other person wants to hurt you. It's because their energy is no longer aligned with yours. The most painful part isn't the change, but the resistance to accepting it. The mind will invent excuses. Maybe they're just going through a rough patch. Maybe if I wait a little longer, things will go back. But Jung taught that the unconscious always knows the truth before the conscious mind. If you pause to listen, if you stop justifying the unjustifiable, you'll see the answer was always there. You don't need concrete proof to know someone no longer wants to be in your life. You don't need perfect closure or confirming words, because love isn't communicated through words alone, but through actions, energy, and how someone chooses to be present in your life. When that presence fades, when the connection cools, clinging will only harm you. But here's the most important part. Letting go isn't weakness, it's self-love. It means valuing yourself enough to not stay where you're not fully received. It means choosing peace over the fear of loneliness, embracing the uncertainty of the future over the security of a relationship that only hurts. It's not easy. Nothing involving growth is. But when you finally decide to let go, to stop waiting, to stop clinging to hope, you experience something you may have never felt before: freedom. And in that freedom, you discover you weren't losing someone else. You were reuniting with yourself. Then, one ordinary day, without realizing it, you wake up and notice it doesn't hurt as much. You no longer check your phone hoping for a message. That'll never come. You no longer feel that weight in your chest when you think of that person, because the wound, though deep, has started to heal. And in that process, you've become someone stronger, more aware, more connected to your true self. Because when someone doesn't love you, you'll notice it. But when you finally decide to accept it, you'll also notice something else. Life goes on. Love isn't begged for, and the best decision you can ever make is to choose yourself. Then comes that moment when everything changes. Not because the other person returned, or because you got the answers you sought, but because you finally let go. You stopped waiting for what never arrived. You stopped asking why. You stopped carrying the hope that something broken could return to how it was. And in that instant you realize, true peace doesn't come from holding on, it comes from releasing. Carl Jung taught that life is always in motion. Nothing stays the same because growth is inevitable. In that process, some people will stay with you, and others will take different paths. But no goodbye is a loss if, in its place, you find something more valuable: connection with yourself. What hurts most isn't someone's absence. It's the time we spent ignoring our own intuition, fighting what was already evident. When you accept that someone has stopped loving you, you don't just free yourself from the emotional burden of waiting. You also create space for something new, space for people who truly value your presence, for relationships that flow effortlessly, for a life where you don't have to convince anyone to stay. Real love isn't a negotiation. It's not a contract where you prove your worth to be chosen. Real love is free, reciprocal, a constant choice without pressure or desperate effort. And it's there, in that new space of clarity, that something beautiful happens. You start seeing yourself with new eyes. You remember who you were before that relationship, before the confusion, before the internal struggle. You reclaim your energy, self-love, and enthusiasm for life. You realize you were never completed by another person. You'd simply forgotten how complete you already were. Jung spoke of synchronicity, the idea that when you're aligned with your truth, the universe responds with opportunities, encounters, and experiences that reflect your internal evolution. When you let go of what doesn't flow, you begin to notice doors that were once closed start opening, because you're no longer investing energy in what holds you back, but in what propels you forward. So the question isn't, why did someone stop loving you? But why are you seeking validation from someone who can't give it? The real issue isn't how to win someone back, it's how to win yourself back. Because when someone truly wants to be in your life, you'll feel it. No doubts, no mixed signals, no need to force anything. And when someone doesn't love you, you'll feel that too. The difference is what you choose to do with that truth. Today, I invite you to reflect. How often have you ignored signs out of fear of loneliness? How often have you justified someone's disinterest to avoid facing the truth? Leave a comment below and tell me which part of this message resonated most with you. What decision will you make starting today? If this content helped you in any way, share it. Someone else might need to hear it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and turn on notifications to keep exploring these life-changing topics together. Because the more people awaken to these truths, the more we can build a community where self-love and authenticity are the path.